Larry, armed insurgents have taken over a 6-block section of a major U.S. city, and CBS News and local politicians continue to refer to them as protesters. How are you this morning, Larry?
I'm good, Jason. Very troubled, but good.
Yeah, I share your concerns. I mean, isn't this an invasion of the United States?
Well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's a civil war. I wouldn't call it a revolution unless you're going to refer to the Bolshevik Revolution. I think that's the most akin to what's going on right now. These are communists, they're socialists, they're anarchists, they're radical groups of all stripes. And what is really troubling is the fact that our politicians, all the way up to the President of the United States, I'm going to be critical here, even though I like the President and personally support him, he's been weak. And he's been weak and incoherent for a very long time with regard to the coronavirus. We get mixed messages. He's being weak here. He's sloughing it off on mayors and governors to do the job that he should do. He has the power. He has the emergency power to take control. And he needs to take control right now because these people are trying to wage a revolution, a Bolshevik-style revolution. It's going to catch on. It's going to catch fire. And what is going to happen, Jason, is you're going to see radical groups on the other side of the political spectrum come in and take care of business. And I don't want to see that happen. I want this to be peaceful. But when the government is absent, when the police force have been ordered to lay down their arms, so to speak, when there is no control at a state or local level, much more at a presidential level, and I'm tired of the talk, I want to see action, then you've got other groups that are going to come in. You're going to have radical militia groups. You're going to have neo-Nazis. You're going to have the Klan. You're going to have others who will come in and take care of business. And that's the fear that I have here right now, because we could wind up in a very, very serious situation. Now, the president's also failed to take action with regard to China. Why is that? I'm tired of the talk. You know, we have brought a lawsuit in Dallas, Texas, for class action for all the damage that has been caused. Why does the American taxpayer have to pay for this? Why isn't his inert, worthless attorney general being ordered to do the same kind of thing and join us in this lawsuit? In fact, the Justice Department will probably wind up defending communist China. That's usually the way it works. You know, and this is true around the world. It's true in Israel too, for instance, with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Great in talking, not too good in actually acting. He's got a real problem over there. Not just coronavirus, but Hamas, Hezbollah, they've surrounded Israel. You know, the American people, frankly, no longer believe or trust their leaders. This president needs to reestablish that and not play a game that has been handed off to him by his establishment advisors, the same ones that have given us these lousy judges on the federal courts, to say, let them take responsibility. The president of the United States has to take responsibility. And that doesn't excuse the fact that there's military here that's now abandoning him as well. The person that he went across the Lafayette Square with the other day after these anarchists tried to burn down a church, St. John's, on the other side, has distanced himself from the president. Oh, I have nothing to do with this. The attorney general said the same thing. I have nothing to do with this. He has to assume control. The people around him are not loyal. The people around him, frankly, want to run for the exits. And now he has to step up. And if he doesn't do that, he's going to lose his base. And he will surely lose the election this November. And that's my message to him, because I personally, not as head of Freedom Watch, but personally, because I don't endorse as head of Freedom Watch, but I personally want to see him win that election, because the consequences are so grave if we have this brain-dead individual by the name of Joe Biden come in here, who has made references just in the last few days of actually having the president removed by the military because he sees the military is on his side now. This is what we're dealing with. It's a crisis, and if the vacuum is not filled, you're going to have bloodshed in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, Larry, it's quite shocking to see that these, I can't really call them protesters, because I think it says specifically you've got to be peaceful in assembling to protest. And when we see armed guards proclaiming that you're now leaving the United States and entering the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, they're asserting sovereignty over this area that they have invaded and taken by force. It literally is an act of war. And I want to share something quickly with you, Larry, because I was watching earlier. CBS News had a report, including an interview with the mayor. But when I just put into Google CBS News and Chaz, it's bringing up 9-year-old stories about Chaz Bono. I mean, isn't this amazing that the most sophisticated search engine in the world is not talking about this little colony called Chaz that is, I mean, this is, oh, here we go. No evidence of Capitol Hill, autonomous zone, business being extorted. So the defense of this activity is unbelievable to me, Larry.
Well, it's a leftist push to take over the country. We're living through Atlas Shrugged again. Ayn Rand, she was very farsighted in her predictions. And this is what's happening, dumbing down the country, removing statues of people in our history, including Christopher Columbus. His statues have been trashed in recent days because he was so-called anti-Native American. We have Gone with the Wind being removed by HBO. This is a major leftist push. And who's behind it? It's not African Americans primarily. These are white leftists that have been teaching our kids in schools like Berkeley. I was in court this week, earlier in the week, on Antifa's attack on our client, Kiara Robles, a fine gay woman who was attacked at the speech of Maya Yiannopoulos. A Berkeley judge threw the case out. I'm up on appeal. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. Is that this is a calculated, Soros-run effort by the left to take over the United States, to destroy it, and primarily leftist whites are behind it, not African Americans. And to the extent there are radical African Americans, there are also radicals of other groups, radical Jews, and I'm Jewish myself, radical Muslims, radical feminists, radical atheists, radical anarchists. They've all banded together. And once they succeed, if they succeed at taking it over, and they will succeed unless the president steps in and exercises some control here, because the local governments are not going to do it, we're going to have a situation where they'll start even fighting with each other. But my message here is that unless this vacuum is filled, then you're going to have radical groups on the other side coming in who are better armed, who are going to take care of business. And then you're really going to have a bloodbath. And that's what really scares the heck out of me. And our government is absent from the president on down.
It's very troubling, Larry, and I agree with you that, with the weekend coming up, seems that Friday night, Saturday is when people get real rowdy and rambunctious. It was really just unbelievable to see this CBS News report. They're referring to the thing as a street fair. They continually referred to the people inside Chaz as protesters. And of course, we want to defend the First Amendment right to peaceably assemble and freedom of speech. My First Amendment right was denied when I tried to join a protest about the unconstitutional lockdowns that have destroyed everybody's businesses and kept everybody locked inside their houses. They don't want you protesting about that. But when you forcibly take over a section of a city within the United States, CBS News considers that a protest. Isn't it kind of too late, Larry? Hasn't the message been sent to every Antifa member, every radical leftist around the country that this is the weekend to seize your own autonomous zone in your local city?
That's right. And who's going to suffer from that?
Everybody.
Ordinary citizens, people that have houses there, that have businesses that have been destroyed. The left sees that it's winning. It is winning. You walk through the streets of Beverly Hills or any country or any place in this country now. Earlier in this week, I was out in California. 2/3 of that city were destroyed downtown. Rodeo Drive, trashed. This is a Bolshevik revolution. That's what it is. And they are succeeding at it. And the president better step up. Now, I want to raise another question, Jason. I represent a client, Judy Mikovits, right now, who came forward. She worked with Fauci. And she'll tell you that the seeds of this virus were sent by Fort Detrick, our military laboratory, to the Chinese to do research in China, in communist China, because to do it here would be illegal. Now, who did that? Allegedly, Fauci. $3.7 million went over there from the Obama administration, subsidizing the Chinese. And you have 700,000 of it being transferred during the Trump administration. I don't know that the president knew of it. He probably didn't, but it was part of this original grant. Is that why? Does the president know that, in fact, we sowed the seeds of our own destruction? Is that why all he can say is it's a Chinese virus? I mean, what kind of bullshit is that? So I love the president. This is tough love right now. He's not being president. He's just simply playing a political game. And that's what we're having now with these protesters. Step up to the plate. We're tired of talk. We're tired of tweets. We want to see action. And if you don't take action, then there's going to be a counter revolution. And that's going to be really serious, and it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, I'm concerned that that's brewing already. We've heard that there are kind of like factions developing within this Capitol Hill autonomous zone where, you know, I think Tucker Carlson said something last night. I know you and I have our disagreements with him, but he said that warlords are developing over there, and in these anarchy experiments, the strong always dominate the weak. I mean, that's part of the reason why our founding fathers developed a constitutional republic for us to live in. And while you and I and other guests on Crowdsource the Truth have discussed some of the shortcomings with it, I personally don't think it's the best idea to throw out the baby with the bathwater and start again from scratch by crushing the existing government, crushing our system of capitalism, and starting from scratch. The mayor of Seattle has suggested on CBS News that perhaps we'll have a summer of love, indicating that she wants this to carry on for months. Larry, isn't it true that leftists who are in these local government positions are trying to goat the president into bringing in military forces so that they can have images on the news of the army killing these teenagers and college students who have taken over the city?
The president doesn't need to do that. I had a conversation a few weeks back with my good friend and colleague, Alan Keyes. Frankly, Alan, he's intellectually at the level of a founding father. He should have been president years ago, seriously. And, you know, he's a very brave guy. He's African American. You know, he stands up and says what's right. In fact, it's the conservative African Americans who have courage here. White people are running away like cowards right now. I call them a racist and they go for the exits. And Alan pointed out a good point. Under the president's powers that were granted to him by Congress, he can take control of the police departments and he can order them to reestablish order. He doesn't need to go to the National Guard. He doesn't need to go to the military, but they need to do it. And that's the purpose of our government primarily. Our government isn't there to give handouts. It isn't there to let people off so they don't have to work by stuffing money in their pockets. Their primary role is to protect the citizenry from a breakdown of law and order. And that's what needs to be done right now. What needs to be done is not what my former group did, you know, as a public relations ploy. Let's paint, because no one is above the law on the streets of Washington, D.C. I mean, do that plus get documents, and that accomplishes nothing. 0 plus 0 equals nothing. What we need to do is to take action right now. Take action. And the president is the head of this country, and he can't play the cynical game. You know, let's create a backlash so I win in November. Well, great for a backlash, but you're not going to have anything left in our inner cities. And the left is on the march to, as they think, they're going to take over this country. Now, maybe they don't succeed right now, but Tucker was right. You know, I have my differences with Tucker Carlson. He ran interference for Roger Stone. His reporter, Chuck Ross, defamed my client, Jerry Corsi, for Stone. I have issues with Tucker. But you know what? I sent him an email the other day. I said, Tucker, you know, whatever our issues, and I'm going to be subpoenaing you in these lawsuits with Stone, you know, you did the right thing. That was a very good monologue, what you did when you pointed out, you know, what this is all about. Now, what happened to Tucker after that? He lost a lot of his advertisers on television. He lost Disney. He lost others. And it's probably his days at Fox are probably numbered because the head of Fox, Lachlan Murdoch, is a leftist. But I admire him for what he did. I give him credit for that, but he's paying a price. And if we have to pay a price, we will pay a price. If I have to pay a price for being critical of the president, so be it. Because right now he's not being president. And nobody else will say that, but they know it. And that's why the stock market crashed yesterday, because they see no one's in control. No one is in control.
So, Larry, if you were an advisor to the president, what would be happening today in Seattle?
I would order the police department to clear them out. Let them go public, let them protest someplace else, or let them protest there as long as they're not occupying the city. I would frankly confiscate any arms that they have, drugs or whatever, and I'd arrest them. If they are breaking drug laws, we have even federal marijuana laws that can be enforced. And there is a way to take them off the streets, and they should be taken off the streets in this particular fashion. If they want to protest peacefully, let them do that. But they're not protesting peacefully. They're holding people hostage, black, white, green, yellow, blue. They're being held hostage. This is like an Iranian hostage crisis,
Yep.
in effect. And this is what we have. Now that police chief that you have on the screen, she's a brave gal. She's very articulate. Let me take my hat off for her. I'm going to bring in a lawsuit for some Philadelphia policemen in the next few days that have been persecuted by Soros-funded groups breaking into their email accounts, private email accounts. The district attorney of Philadelphia, who I wrote to nicely to clear this thing up and to get these police back on the job because they were fired precipitously because the mayor and because the DA, Larry Krasner, who's a raving leftist, was elected with Soros money, and the former police commissioner who was removed for a sexual harassment matter because they all played games with the police and they fired a whole bunch of them unjustly. And what this is reverse racism. It's racism against white cops. There was a African American cop recently who made a reference on Twitter that white people should wear masks and because it suits them, because that's exactly what the Klan does.
Oy.
And nothing happened to her. So it's time for all people to be treated equally. I don't care what race you are, but the primary people that are responsible, not just our government leaders, but it's white people who are responsible because they're running for the exits and they're not standing up for their rights. And this is not to say they have more rights. They don't have more rights. Everybody has equal rights, but stand up for your rights because right now, everything is upside down. Can't even have Gone with the Wind on HBO. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit troubling that people want to try to change history. From where I sit, I would prefer to see a new version of Gone with the Wind directed by someone who feels they have a better understanding of the 2020 interpretation of the South at the time and leave Gone with the Wind as it was as a historical artifact and perhaps make a new version.
Well,
Seattle
Jason,
police...
what's in Gone?
Well, I think the depiction of slaves is
Wind
objectionable. I don't want to get into too deep of a conversation about Gone with the Wind. I think we agree that eliminating these things isn't what we want to do, but perhaps revisiting them and helping people understand what the thought process was at the time. I want to focus again on the Seattle police chief, Carmen Best. She gave a press conference where she said it was not her idea to vacate the police station, basically indicating that she was ordered by the mayor. Larry, this seems remarkably similar to what I've observed around New York City in the 3 months of the coronavirus lockdown. I've seen virtually no NYPD officers around on the street. Of course, they've been plentiful during the protests, but we've heard a lot of contradictions from mayors and from police chiefs having their hands tied. Yesterday at his daily press conference, Mayor de Blasio announced that coronavirus is racist. I don't know if you knew that, but he literally said, "We previously thought the virus didn't discriminate, but now we know differently." What do you think about that comment?
Well, this guy's just insane. And, I'll tell you something. The fact that New York voted for this guy, they brought it on themselves. I'm sorry, Jason, you live there, but
I didn't vote for him.
this city is really effed up. I mean, it really is. Excuse the language. And it's the fact that you would vote for this moron, this leftist moron. I mean, it's unreal. So This is what I'm talking about: education. And I admire this police chief, and it's valiant African Americans who are actually taking the lead here. White people are running for the exit. I'm going to go into my bunker. I'll see what happens. I'll come out when it's over. You know what? When it's over, we're going to have a socialist, communist country. That's what we're going to have when it's over. So you better come out of your. You know what I call the Attorney General now? The groundhog in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, that runs back into its hole, usually on February 2nd. Puxatawny Phil. Our
Right.
Attorney General, I call him Puxatani Bill. Okay, that's what he is. He hasn't done jack, okay, for all these years. And he's been there over a year already, 2 years, I guess. He's another blowhard. Okay, what does he do? He's the chief law enforcement officer at the Justice Department. What's he doing? Well, it had nothing to do with what went on in Lafayette Park. He abandoned his own president. And where's the president? This guy should be fired. He's as bad as Sessions. He hasn't prosecuted one person. Talks about John Durham up there in Connecticut. I'm troubled by what he finds. Well, that's another euphemism. I'm troubled, but there'll be no indictments. Forget about that. The Bundys. He allows for an appeal of the dismissal of the Bundy case when, in fact, the BLM had a kill list on the heads of the Bundys. This guy is worthless. This guy should be prosecuted himself. It's unbelievable. So we have no leadership here, President. Step up to the plate. Don't worry about being reelected. If you do your job, you'll be reelected, but you're not doing your job right now.
People are anticipating, Larry, that Joe Biden is leading and could win. There's been a list of suggested running mates, and it's looking certainly like an African-American female will be his choice. Do you think Joe Biden is going to actually win the election?
Could happen. I mean, the way things are going, because he just needs to keep his mouth shut. I mean, because when you have a lack of leadership at the presidential level, and it looks like the president's getting rolled, and there is an alternative, there could be a reaction among the independents. And I'll tell you what would be a big mistake by this president. If he lays on top of everything that's going on a pardon of Roger Stone, when he says he's the law and order president, he's going to pardon somebody that lied under oath, convicted on 5 counts of perjury, 1 count of threatening witnesses, witness tampering, another obstruction of justice. Layer that on top of everything else, and you've got enough independents in a swing state like Florida, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania to turn this election. And then, God forbid, I'm talking personally, we have Joe Biden. This guy is brain dead. He has no morals. He's a plagiarist. He, is a shakedown artist with regard to the Ukraine. He's corrupt to the core. He never had a real job. I feel sorry that his family was killed, in an automobile accident when he was young. But you know what? I don't feel sorry for him at all. I mean, this guy is a clown. He's a corrupt clown. And the president's going to hand it to him if he continues going the way it is.
Larry, the 3 women who are the founders of Black Lives Matters have praised, lauded, and even stated that Joanne Chesimir, also known as Assata Shakur, is their mentor, their hero, their ideological inspiration for Black Lives Matters. I've found, just in some cursory conversations I've had with people around New York City and friends of mine, so few people know about Joanne Chesimir's history with the Black Liberation Army, the violence that group engaged in, murdering a New Jersey state trooper. And this whole defund the police movement comes from the radical 60s groups, the Weather Underground, the Black Panthers, the Black Liberation Army. They've managed to fool people into thinking that defund the police somehow means they're going to audit the spending. So what do you think about these?
Nation of Islam. Let's throw Farrakhan in here. He's behind this. He's the one who has been saying for years, and he was the inspiration, Black Muslim, that that they have to kill white cops, that you have to spill blood, that the white man's evil. And you're hearing that now. Now we're also hearing that white men are actually born evil, okay? And you even have Matthew McConaughey, who I've liked up to now as an actor in Hollywood, saying we have white allergies. We have endemic racism, that the minute we're born, if you're white, you're a racist. That's what these people are preaching. And what are white people doing? Running away. Leave me alone. I'm sorry. I'm guilty. Throw myself down. Beg for forgiveness. No, we're all equal in this country. And Martin Luther King stood for that. That's what he stood for. These people are nothing but demagogue hacks, and they're very, very dangerous. I brought lawsuits against them, but the judges in Dallas, Texas didn't have the guts to let them go forward. And, it's just unbelievable that this country's laying down and taking this as the country is being destroyed. And if you don't think it's being destroyed, give some thought, because this is what's happening right now. President, take control. If you don't take control, you can forget about another 4 years.
Yeah, and Larry, one of my primary concerns has been that I feel that so many people who are involved in supporting Black Lives Matter don't really understand what its true goals are. I think that it is a deception that is being foisted on both black and white people to just utilize this kind of mob to achieve the goals of these leftist radical groups. I mean, William Barr, I agree with your assessment of him, but he did speak accurately when he said that there's a witch's brew of radical groups that are interested in
That's the
defeating the
point.
police. Yeah.
You just hit the point, Jason. Yeah, he speaks, but he doesn't do anything. I mean, I'm
Right.
tired of talk. Okay, Puxatani Bill. That's what he is.
Yeah. So you were telling us about your friend, his name is escaping me right now, Alan Keyes, who
Keith, Alan
suggested
Keith.
that
Alan's very,
he's suggested that
former
the
UN
president could activate these police departments. Why is he waiting? Why not just do that today?
because he's being given bad advice and he's taking it, just like he appointed all these hack political judges to the bench. He didn't know who he was appointing. He appointed establishment Republicans who are afraid of their shadow, who will not stand up for the American people. And, and they're not accountable to the voter. They think they have immunity. It was given to them, frankly, illegally by the Supreme Court decisions. And they don't even have life tenure. The Constitution says serve for good behavior, but they think that they're untouchable. They're the ones who are above the law. These judges are there to protect us. And that's another issue. But Alan is right, is that the president has the power to activate the police departments to take control of them. He doesn't need to go to the National Guard. He doesn't need to go to the military. And even if he did, under these circumstances, it's warranted.
Yeah, and he did declare Antifa a terrorist organization, so it's really confusing to me that they haven't acted on that in any way. Why not arrest George Soros, seize his assets, shut down any of these 501c3s that are sending money to anyone who's involved in seizing territory in a U.S. city? It seems like something that could be done quickly.
This gets back to the point, Jason, and this was my major point. Okay, and I'm going to write a column today about it for WorldNet Daily, is that with this vacuum, with our so-called government, taking no action from the presidential level on down, the vacuum is going to be filled by radical groups of another persuasion. And there will likely, mark my words, mark my prediction, next 7 to 10 days, there's going to be bloodshed in the streets. And I don't want to see that. And that's why I'm being very strong right now. President, take control. If you don't take control, there are others that are going to fill the void, and they'll take care, quote unquote, of business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
I don't
actually
want to see
quite
that happen. I don't want to see that happen.
No, me neither, but I'm becoming concerned that people who are in these cities who oppose these groups, who see them taking up arms, will potentially exercise their Second Amendment right. We've heard rumors that they're shaking down businesses and demanding residents show ID. It's amazing how they want, everything to be no police except when they're in charge. Then they want to police things very heavily and with a pretty firm hand.
What happens when there's no law and order? What happened, in Wyatt Earp in the Old West? He had to take matters into his own hands. Okay? He didn't go to some grand jury or something else. There was an immediate need, okay? And he was doing the right thing. But there are people who are unvirtuous in society who will resort to that. And, when you say, I coined the phrase because no one is above the law, that Judicial Watch uses, I would say right now you should change it because there is no law. There is no law. That's what exists in this country.
I know you got limited time this morning, Larry, so before we go, I just wanted to ask you about the developments with the Michael Flynn case. Emmett Sullivan has brought in this amicus. What's the judge's name again? Gleason? There's been some developments as though the appeals court is going to hear Michael Flynn's bid to force Sullivan to drop the case. We've now heard from so many legal experts, including you, that this is totally unprecedented what Emmett Sullivan...
Frankly, to be honest, I don't think it is unprecedented. I think that Sullivan will do the right thing in the end. He brought in, Jackie Gleason from Miami Beach. This guy's a clown. But I think Sullivan is just exercising, his angst and authority here because, and I like the general, and I want to see this thing dismissed. but he should never have pled guilty. His real complaint is against his former lawyers at Covington and Burling that threw him under the bus, the law firm of Eric Holder and Lonnie Brewer, former head of the criminal division under Obama. You know, the judge has a right to look into this, because you don't have somebody come in front of you more than one time and say you're guilty, and then all of a sudden you walk off into the sunset. But Sullivan will let him go in the end. He will.
But aren't Obama and Eric Holder?
Yeah, yeah.
Aren't Obama and Eric Holder key figures in this leftist revolution that's going on right now? It seems the seeds of what we're seeing today were planted and nurtured and grew into, frankly, a forest under the Barack Obama presidency.
Well, that's right. Obama gets the primary blame for this, is that we were doing pretty well in race relations. We were making progress, but he's the one who fomented this, and he continues to do that. Just a few weeks ago, he alluded to people following you down the street if you're African American youth, and killing you and that kind of thing. I mean, he wanted this thing to happen. It's very clever, and his lovely wife Michelle plays a pretty big role too. And look, the guy was photographed with Farrakhan. He's not in any way. He doesn't have a problem with Farrakhan or Bill Ayers or others. He's a Manchurian candidate, and he knows what he's doing, and he's very smart.
Yeah, he's not just photographed with Bill Ayers, and I've been doing everything that I can do to help educate people as to what the Weather Underground was all about, how closely associated Barack Obama is with both Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn. Did I lose you there, Larry? Have you frozen? It looks like your image is frozen. I think we've lost you, Larry, unfortunately. Let me just see if we've still got you here. Okay, we got a little problem. Sorry, Larry. Gotta try to get you. Maybe it's frozen on your end. You look totally frozen. Can you hear me, Larry? All right, I think we've lost Larry, but he was almost out of time anyway, so I think we might wrap up this segment right there. Lots of good insights from Larry Klayman, the founder of freedomwatchusa.org. I hope that people will visit Freedom Watch. There really aren't any other lawyers in the United States of America like Larry who are fighting for freedom and justice. And it's very important that people check out, freedomwatchusa.org. Help Larry and his team over at Freedom Watch be the Department of Justice that we really need. I want to thank Larry for joining me. Very concerned about what we're seeing in Seattle. And I'll be back in just a short while with David Hawkins' Discovery CSI. Hope people will sponsor the show. You're going to get access to a huge library of sponsor-exclusive content, including shows later today. David Hawkins' Discovery CSI is coming up at 1 p.m., and then I'll be back with John Cullen's coronavirus investigation. I think we're still investigating coronavirus today. We might be investigating the leftist takeover of the United States. We've lost Larry there, so I'll see everybody later today. Thanks for watching.